I was scrolling through social media on a random afternoon. The sun hid behind gray clouds, mirroring my mood. As I swiped through my feed, I saw a photo from a family gathering. The image was vibrant, radiating joy, a stark contrast to the icy dread beginning to boil inside me. Lucas was there, surrounded by his parents, and of course, with a look that seemed to exclude me, as if I weren't part of his narrative. A flicker of something drew me in, making me click on the picture. But something was definitely amiss. With each passing second, more details bothered me. The focus was on the family, a picture-perfect union, with bright smiles and knowing glances. But me? I wasn't in the picture. The sunlight behind them seemed to erase my presence, as if a sophisticated editor had decided I was merely a mistake to be removed. My name is Sophia. I'm 34, and I'm a photographer. What should have been a moment of joy had transformed into a nightmare, worthy of framing. My breath hitched. Every beat of my heart echoed a sense of betrayal, a deep, silent cut. Lucas had never defended me from his family's criticism. For a while, I felt like an observer, a shadow in his and his family's lives. But seeing tangible proof of this hurt me in a way I could never have imagined. The feeling of invisibility washed over me like a storm. They thought they could erase my presence, but I forgot to tell them my shadow remains. Amidst the emotional chaos, my mind raced, a whirlwind of questions. What had happened between us? Where was the man who would fill me with love and support? The man who once made me believe we were an unbeatable team now seemed subjugated to his family's will. Everyone in the photo was laughing while I drowned in a sea of uncertainty. I knew I needed a way to cope with what was unfolding, something beyond tears and lamentations. I needed art. A surge of clarity hit me. Art would be my weapon. I looked around my small studio. Cameras, lenses, and a mountain of photographic equipment that had always served as a window to capture the beauty around me. And in that instant, a plan began to form in my mind. The idea of using photography as my means of expression and protest grew like an unquenchable fire. The details, the lighting, the composition, everything had to be perfectly planned. With each click of the camera, I could capture the reality surrounding me, the hypocrisy hidden beneath false smiles. Something bigger was needed, something that would reveal the truth. I envisioned images that combined the aesthetic beauty of the outside world with the raw pain of internal exclusion. The light streaming in through the blinds was the same light fading from my marriage. The idea of creating a photographic project that highlighted my own invisibility was taking shape. I wanted to transform hate into art, to absorb this oppressive feeling so that, by exhibiting it, I could make Lucas and his family see what they were doing. Deep in that anguish, I emerged determined. I closed my eyes for a moment and focused on putting the idea into action. I resolved to step out of the shadows and create space for myself in the spotlight of existence. Images flooded my mind. I needed contrasts, darkness and light, inclusion and exclusion, presence and absence. As a photographer, I always sought truth in emotions. Now, that truth would be my semantics of revenge. I rose from the couch and grabbed my camera, embracing the intention to bring this idea to life. Deep down, my soul knew this path wouldn't be easy, but the determination to expose the reality became my fuel. Because ultimately, I didn't just want to capture images. I wanted them to speak for me. My keen eye for composition and visual narrative became the light at the end of the tunnel, a reflection of who I was becoming. And with this new perspective, the shadows that once dominated me now became my battlefield. Thus began the journey of Sophia, the invisible wife. An act of rebellion that would introduce a new chapter of empowerment and resistance in a story where visibility would finally be reclaimed. I remember the first time I met Lucas. The soft afternoon light filtered through the leaves of the trees, creating a play of shadows and brilliance as he approached. A wide, genuine smile illuminating his face. In that moment, everything seemed perfect. He was charismatic, had a way of making me feel completely seen, as if my entire being was a revelation. Long conversations stretched into the early morning hours. filled with laughter and promises of a future together that seemed increasingly real. I was captivated by his passion for life, his vibrant worldview full of possibilities, and I quickly found myself in a fairy tale where he was the protagonist, and I, his muse. Our first dates were like vibrant brushstrokes on a blank canvas. Lucas became my muse, capturing not just his beauty, but the connection we were forging. My cameras transformed into instruments for immortalizing the moments we shared. With each click, I saw something magical in the color of his eyes, in the way the light reflected on his smile. With each developed image, our story unfolded, its nuances and complexities imprinted on my memory. But, as any photographer knows, this beauty doesn't last forever. As time went on, clouds began to gather in our colorful story. The emotional warmth that once filled my heart gave way to a sharp chill as I realized the shadow of his family's influence began to spread, obscuring our love. Subtle comments from Claudia, his mother, started seeping in like tiny daggers, her words becoming unbearable. "You know, Sophia, family is everything, don't you? Lucas needs a woman who will truly support him." They were mere insinuations, but each one felt like a stab of disapproval, eroding my self-confidence. The social pressure became a constant at our family dinners where, instead of support and connection, I felt like I was constantly on trial, being judged. My smiles, once genuine, became strained as I tried to ignore the veiled hostility. In those gatherings, the atmosphere grew thick, bordering on oppressive. From comments on my lifestyle to criticisms of my art, it felt like I was slowly being crushed under the weight of expectations. At one such dinner, I remember Ricardo, my brother-in-law, moving among us like a diplomat in a war-torn country. He had charm, a penchant for art reflected in his love for exhibitions and interviews with critics. It was a connection I thought I could leverage, but in reality, he became increasingly a part of this insidious pressure. His words, seemingly kind, were laced with constant manipulation. "Sophia, you have incredible talent, but have you considered how your art could better align with the family's vision?" It was as if he was telling me my worth depended on how much I could mold myself to this distorted vision. Over time, the relationship I thought was strong began to fade. This social expectation pressured me to be something I wasn't, a reflection of an idealized figure that was nothing more than a mirage. Lucas's gaze, which once shone with admiration and companionship, began to waver. At these gatherings, he became more and more a shadow of himself, dancing around the criticisms he received from his family, unable to defend me or stand up for me. Each time this happened, a part of me shut down, a brick added to a wall that separated us. Looking at the photographs that once celebrated our union now became a painful exercise. They captured what was once our love, but now seemed to be mere silent witnesses to an internal struggle. Every picture I took after these gatherings became a kind of silent manifesto of the pain I felt, an unwritten rule that restricted my freedom of expression. The colors that once seemed so vibrant now began to appear faded, as if my creativity was being drained. As my self-confidence slipped through my fingers, I felt the need to reaffirm my identity, something that seemed to be disappearing under the voices of Lucas and his family. I realized my true essence was being overshadowed, and the possibility of losing my passion for photography was an idea I couldn't accept. "You can be strong, Sophia," I repeated to myself. "Don't let them extinguish the light that you are." But the internal battle intensified, each day a new push to want to be the woman Lucas and his family desired, instead of the woman I truly was. On one particularly bleak night, with frustration and sadness mounting, I picked up my camera and thought about how I could use it not only to capture what I saw, but also to give voice to what I felt. The house lights seemed to shine cruelly, echoing the disparity between the life I wanted and the life I was living. Shadows danced on the walls as I tried to understand where I had lost myself. With each photo, I longed to communicate what I felt, the hypocrisy surrounding my relationship, the sadness hidden beneath false smiles, the pain of being sidelined. I was in limbo, an artist searching for meaning and a woman fighting to be seen. The expectations of Lucas and his family had become invisible chains binding me, and I was determined to fight and find a way to free myself from this oppression. I remember visualizing, amidst this turmoil, my camera as a kind of lantern, illuminating the dark areas of my life that needed to be revealed. I was ready to capture my truth and turn it into a work of art. My journey wasn't over. In fact, it was only just beginning. I would fight for myself and for the parts of me that had become invisible, because the invisible wife was about to become a recognized and strong artist. I decided it was time to act. Frustration transformed into an inner flame, fueling a dormant impulse that had been asleep for too long. The pain and powerlessness felt over the past months became fuel as I raised my camera, an extension of myself, ready to express the reality surrounding me. Each click, each capture, would be an act of rebellion against the invisibility that consumed me. On a bright, sunny morning, I sat at the living room table with a steaming cup of coffee. Morning light filtered through the curtains, creating a play of shadows that evoked the contrast between light and darkness present in my life. I looked at my camera, and an idea began to take shape. Not just a series of photographs, but a project that would speak about invisibility and the search for authenticity. I needed my art to convey a genuine message, so I envisioned a series of images that connected my personal experience to that of so many other women who felt the same way. With that in mind, I went in search of an ally, someone who shared my vision. So, I contacted Maria, a friend, artist, and photographer who had always admired my work. Nervousness hung in the air as I typed a message to her. "Maria, I need you. I want to explore the essence of invisibility in a series of photos that capture the pain, the struggle, and the transformation. Would you be willing to join me?" Expectation grew in my heart. Minutes later, my phone vibrated with her reply. "Of course, Sophia. I'm excited about this idea. Your art has always had a profound power, and together we can do something incredible." The relief I felt reading her words was immeasurable. Maria encouraged me to act, and I realized I wasn't alone on this journey of self-discovery and expression. We met in the park, a space that had once been a refuge during happier years. The vibrant setting seemed ironic, contrasting with the darkness I carried inside. The trees, which once symbolized joy and freedom, now seemed like structural arches, ready to support a new narrative. The park would be our stage, where each image would tell a story. Each click would reveal the truth I was absorbing within myself. With each click of the camera, I delved into the question, what does it really mean to be invisible? This idea pulsed in my thoughts as I observed the movement around me. The laughter of children, couples strolling, all immersed in their own narratives, oblivious to my internal struggle. Using various techniques, such as lighting and composition, I created images that symbolized what it was like to be a shadow in someone's life. I remember taking a picture of myself among the trees, where I was barely visible, an almost ghostly presence absorbing the surrounding environment. A portrait of my reality. However, the project began to take on a life of its own, beyond what I had expected. One afternoon, after an inspiring session, a group of women approached to greet me, curious about what I was creating. The conversation quickly turned into a catharsis, and the stories began to flow. They shared their experiences of loneliness and feeling unseen in their marriages, their families, and even in their professional lives. Each account resonated within me like an echo of resilience and pain. A new understanding began to emerge. It wasn't just an individual struggle, but a collective cry that needed to be heard. The following week, Maria and I began working more intensely, reflecting on the broader message of the project and incorporating these testimonies into the next photographs. Each new image became a collaboration between us and the women who had opened up to us. Through this practice, I realized that art not only united us, but also revealed the vulnerability hidden beneath layers of indifference. Social media soon became our exhibition platform. We began sharing our work with a wider audience, and the response was incredible. With each new post, messages of support poured in. "Sophia, your images touch my soul. I'm going through this too," said one of my followers. The feeling of connection was like a balm and spurred me on to explore the emotional depth behind each photograph even further. As the project developed, I began to think about expanding it into something larger. A mural would bring together diverse stories and perspectives of women who, in some way, had been touched by invisibility. I wanted to create a space where each could express her own struggle and how she overcame the barriers imposed by society. The idea of being visible, as a cry through art, seemed closer than ever. With each new capture, a new piece of my inner self emerged, and the insecurity that had once dominated my heart began to dissipate. Looking at the images, I no longer saw an invisible wife, but an artist determined to give voice to what she carried in her heart. The shadows, which were once a symbol of oppression, began to transform into springboards to freedom. The world was about to know not only my story, but the invisible collective that was finally beginning to rise. The fight to be seen, not only by Lucas and his family, but also by the world, was just beginning. With a new focus and a renewed sense of purpose, I was ready to bring these images to life and let them speak for me. These shadows, far from being a burden, would now be the fertile ground where art would meet. And by creating these narratives, I could finally break free from the invisible chains that had once imprisoned me. The journey was unfolding, and as we moved forward, the artistic universe expanded, ready to absorb all that was about to be revealed. With each new photo shoot, I felt the project coming alive. The messages pouring in echoed the pain and struggle of so many women striving to be heard. This journey was no longer just about me. It was a collective effort to break free from the shackles of invisibility. I remember sitting with Maria in a cafe, the morning light filtering through the windows, when I suggested, what if we held a workshop, a place where women could share their stories and help us reinterpret this experience of invisibility? Her eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Yes, let's build a safe space where everyone can open up without fear. We could create something powerful. With that, we started planning the event. It was important that the workshop not only provided a space for discussing personal stories, but also offered women the freedom to express their art. The idea of creating a mural became even stronger. It was as if each of us could leave a visible mark, a contribution that would celebrate our strength and resilience. I wanted art to be our means of liberation. The event began to take shape, and a world of possibilities opened before me. We developed a series of activities, ranging from free writing about our experiences of invisibility to photography sessions where each woman could capture what she felt. I walked through the space we had booked and visualized the tables adorned with blank sheets of paper, colorful pens, and cameras waiting to be used. Nervousness, mixed with excitement, pulsed in my chest. As soon as we announced the event, the response was overwhelming. Soon, a wave of women signed up. On the day of the workshop, the sun shone brightly, and the atmosphere was full of anticipation. The space was decorated with images that Maria and I had already captured, reflecting our personal stories. The air was thick with emotion as women entered, some hesitant, others excited. We created a circle where each woman introduced herself and began to share her stories of invisibility. Listening to their experiences, I realized that what I had felt wasn't isolated. It was a collective problem we faced, a struggle that so many of us were waging in the shadows. One participant, Claudia, spoke about her marriage and the years she spent trying to please everyone, while her own needs were almost invisible. I was the perfect wife, but behind the facade I was slowly dying. He never noticed the pain I carried inside me, she confessed, her voice choked with emotion. Her story resonated like a familiar lament, and I realized I wasn't the only one who had felt ethereal, as if I didn't belong. We brainstormed ideas on how we could translate these stories into art, each of us weaving pieces of our lives into a tapestry of empowerment. The connection that formed was palpable, the energy pulsing in the air like a signal that we were in this together. I led the photography session, where each woman had the chance to position herself in front of the camera and capture her emotions. The photographs taken that day were not just images, but manifestations of what we were experiencing. The shadows that had once consumed us were now an integral part of our narrative. Walking among the participants, I helped guide them, encouraging them to find their voices through the lens. Holding the camera, I looked through it like a mirror, capturing not only what I saw, but also the resilience growing around me. Each click became a celebration of life and a cry for freedom. As each image was revealed, their expressions of pain transformed into freedom, giving visibility to those women. They shone as they recognized themselves through the lens, and I saw images that spoke of each of them, perhaps silently, but with a force that echoed into the outside world. As this energy materialized, the idea of creating a mural became more concrete, each woman contributing something unique. In the last activity of the workshop, I proposed that each woman write a message about what being invisible meant to them and how they could assert themselves. The words flowed like a river, a torrent of feelings being exposed. In the end, the messages became essential components of the mural we began to plan. At the intersection of art and words, everything seemed to fall into place. The mural would be an interactive space where each woman could express her struggle and affirm her presence, a space where there would be no room for silence and shadows. After the workshop, we decided to have a huge opening party for the mural, an exhibition that would bring the community together and invite more women to join us in the fight for visibility. The planning was underway, and the energy was infectious. As we organized the exhibition, another phase began to unfold. I was not only preparing a mural, but reshaping my self-image. Each image we prepared reflected a part of our journey. As we designed and set up the exhibition space, the nervousness began to turn into joy. The words written by each woman became brushstrokes adorning the walls, each one uniting in a tapestry of struggle and resilience. I thought about how this journey had transformed me. Entering the room, I realized that those walls were full of strength, and more importantly, they weren't just mine. They were a celebration of collective strength, a hallmark of resistance. Then, the day of the opening finally arrived. The venue was radiant, decorated with soft lighting that highlighted the mural. As the guests arrived, a sense of anticipation and excitement filled the air. Every woman who had participated in the workshop was there, wearing the emotions of their stories, excited to see their art on display. The festive atmosphere was vibrant, full of laughter and artistic expressions. The event began with a presentation of the photographs we had taken, and I found the courage to share my own story. I looked at the audience, my voice trembling but resolute. This exhibition is a manifestation of the struggle many of us face. Here, we are not only revealing our challenges but also our victories. The audience was attentive, and murmurs of support reverberated, creating an atmosphere of empathy and understanding. After the presentation, a return to the mural seemed essential. We invited everyone present to write messages of strength and support on the contemporary structure that revealed each expression of resistance. People approached, moved by the art and the interaction, and we perceived the dynamic between visibility and invisibility transforming. The space became a celebration, where even the deepest scars could be exposed and understood. It was clear that the mural had become a symbol of overcoming and community. As the night unfolded, I spotted Lucas near the entrance. A mix of nervousness and a feeling of determination washed over me. He approached, with a look that held melancholy and confusion. "Sophia," he said, "I didn't know you had ventured so far. Your images, they speak so profoundly." I stared at him, paralyzed by a mixture of vulnerability and newfound courage. "This is our reality, Lucas. I am no longer invisible. These stories are mine, and those of all of us." And, as the mural continued to be revealed, I realized that this transformation was only beginning. The fight for visibility, for voice, and for art now expanded beyond the wall, where a new world was about to unfold. The process of affirmation was in full swing. Each woman who passed by, each story that was shared, was an immense step towards freedom. Soon, these shadows, instead of being a burden, became the fabric of our bravery, a vibrant fabric that connected us all in a single narrative. The art was constantly evolving, and like us, it too would flourish in the light. Following the successful opening of the exhibition, the repercussions spread like ripples in a still pond. The images I had captured, both mine and those of other women, resonated deeply with the audience. Every new comment and message, received through my Instagram and private messages, contained an echo of pain and overcoming, a testament that invisibility was not an isolated fate, but a shared experience for many. Like a balm on emotional wounds, those words fueled my determination to continue on this journey. The first week post-exhibition was marked by unexpected events. I received an invitation from a renowned art curator who had seen the photos on social media. He was impressed by the depth of the work and wished to discuss the possibility of a new exhibition in a local gallery, a space that could accommodate more stories and open a broader dialogue about female invisibility. The invitation was a surprise, an opportunity that could transform everything, but which also brought a mix of anxiety about what it would mean for me. What was I willing to risk? Was I ready to take these messages of pain and liberation to an even wider audience? I reflected on the decision, visualizing opportunities to expand on what I had already begun to build with those women. A larger space would mean not only a wider reach, but the chance to consider diverse stories that remained untold, an invitation to the community to reflect on their realities. I knew this project could serve as a magnetic force, bringing together voices that would echo in the gallery. When I accepted the invitation, I knew that this new exhibition would require renewed focus. The weeks that followed were intense. The planning began, and I spoke with Maria and the other women in the group about the experience we wanted to create. During the meetings, we talked about the images that were already captured and how we could organize them in a way that truly told the rich tapestry of our lives. In addition, I developed the idea of including an interactive mural where people could leave messages. It would be a space where each visitor could express their own experiences of invisibility and support. We had fun assembling the colorful sticky notes and choosing the areas that would display the texts and images so that our relationship with the art could continue to grow. With each passing day, the apprehension shifted. It was no longer about being seen only as the wife seeking a voice. I wanted this exhibition to be a declaration of freedom, an affirmation that no woman should be forced to silence herself. I wanted the art to symbolize our struggle for recognition and presence. And in this pursuit, I managed to make some profound reflections. As the date of the new opening approached, I also decided to remix some of the images from the previous one, seeking to re-signify them in a new context. This helped me to glimpse the story through a new lens, and each new photograph worked brought new sensations to the surface. I was trying to connect my past to the new identity I was forming. Looking through the camera lens, I thought about how these images would now speak of us, not just of me, but of all of us. But there was still uncertainty about Lucas. I didn't know how he would react to this. Despite his presence at the first exhibition, something told me that he wouldn't find the strength to understand the extent of my changes, or the weight I had carried for so long. In the conversations we had in these last days, I realized that there was an invisible barrier between us, a mixture of love and confusion about what it means to support someone like that, how a woman seeking visibility could, in fact, illuminate him, too. On the night of the gallery opening, I was nervous. The space was large and bright, filled with guests. The walls were adorned with images that highlighted not only the struggles and triumphs, but also the beauty and nuances of our stories. As I entered, the atmosphere seemed to vibrate. The sound of lively conversations and laughter filled the room as visitors explored the interactive mural. As I picked up the microphone to give my presentation, a mix of excitement and apprehension washed over me. This exhibition isn't just about me. It's about intertwining voices, connecting stories. It symbolizes the struggle many face to be seen, to be heard, and most importantly, to be respected. Today, we celebrate these stories and embrace our truths. The applause that followed was enthusiastic, but there was one sound I was specifically looking for: Lucas's response. He was there, visibly attentive, absorbing every word I said. At the end of the speech, the murmur that followed made it clear the audience was eager to hear more. The energy in the air crackled with empathy, and I realized the art was fulfilling its mission to unite. A wave of excitement washed over everyone present. And even though my heart was racing, it was an encouragement to continue. After the speech, Lucas approached, a mixture of tension and anxiety hanging between us. "Sophia," he began, his voice a little hesitant. "I didn't know there were so many layers to your life. This work is profound. You should be incredibly proud of yourself." A rush of emotions overwhelmed me. The words I sought to express what I felt seemed to fail me. Stories I'd lived rushed back into my mind, and memories of pain intertwined with this new journey and the pursuit of authenticity. "Thank you, Lucas. But I wish you would see beyond the surface. There are complex stories in what we see. My struggle isn't just about art. It's about truly living, without masks," I said, trying to navigate this on my own. The discussions continued in every direction. I often found myself surrounded by conversations that generated new perspectives, both easy and challenging. A group of women approached, a welcoming moment that reminded me of the power this space created. Each shared how the art had helped them express their pain through shared experiences. And then, looking at the interactive mural, I realized that not only was I growing, but many were growing together. The stories throughout the exhibition formed a visible pattern of resilience. It was as if the lives of each woman were intertwined in the colors, lettering, and textures of the text and images. There was an echo of empowerment in every gesture, and the enjoyment of a new kind of freedom resonated throughout the space. It was then that I realized the journey others had also taken to get there. Lucas's presence became a constant, amidst what I still didn't know. His message of support seemed to evolve as the days passed. He engaged in the dialogue, not only as support, but also seeking to understand this new woman I was. And that night, even with uncertainties, we felt a bond forming between us, forged from honesty and the pursuit of authenticity. With all these changes underway, the mural became a collective of female voices seeking connection. And along the way, my heart filled even more with hope as I embraced my new identity. The shadows that once oppressed me now became poetry. The arc of the struggle for visibility wasn't ending. It was beginning to expand, reflecting that each of us could be seen, that our art would be both a cry and a refuge, all mixed in one dance. Looking out at the crowded gallery, I nodded to the women standing beside me as I looked towards my future. It was a future where the narrative was no longer a solitary struggle, but a collective embracing the freedom of self-expression. And so, like a bridge connecting these worlds, this struggle became a fundamental part of the feminist life that now promised to expand beyond the mural in the gallery. Armed with our stories, my fellow women and I moved forward. The world was, in fact, more present, and visibility was a consequence of our struggles together. With each step taken, the collective became even stronger, even more vibrant. And so, the story of an invisible woman transformed into a narrative of empowerment, lifting us toward a future where we would always be seen, always recognized. The journey would continue to grow, and the art would continue to bloom amidst the shadows. The success of the exhibition brought with it a new reality, a vibrant dynamic that permeated all aspects of my life. Looking at the mural, I realized it had become more than just art. It was a representation of living stories, an interactive dialogue about invisibility, and a space where every woman had the right to be heard and recognized. At that moment, art was not just a form of expression, but a silent revolution calling for transformation. With the increase in visibility, our group of women began to attract a diverse range of viewers, from curious students to academics concerned with gender issues. Meetings became frequent, and invitations began to appear. An event at a local school brought a new excitement, a room full of young people seeking to understand more about empowerment and visibility. On a panel, among other participants, I shared my story and experiences. The reactions were sincere. Some young women cried, others smiled, and I realized the message was being captured in its essence. That day, I realized the power art held in shaping perspectives, not just regarding invisibility, but also the potential within each individual. Later, sitting with several girls during a break, one confided in me, "I never thought my stories, however small, could have value. How can I learn to talk about them?" This made me reflect on the importance of each individual voice within the collective. It was in these moments that my doubts began to dissipate. The mural wouldn't just be a space for protest and expression, but a vital place where stories would be respected and amplified. An idea took root in my mind. What if we could create an even bigger project? A program where art and empowerment intertwined, allowing other women to tell their stories in their own voices? A platform that celebrated the diversity and complexity of the struggles faced? With Maria's help, we began working on a concept called Visible Voices, a project that would unite artists, students, and women from the community to create a series of ongoing workshops and exhibitions, inviting each participant to express their narratives through art. It was a way to further strengthen the network we had created and give more meaning to what we were already doing. But with this brilliant idea came new challenges. Starting another project meant going through another cycle of planning and fundraising. We would need a space where we could expand the mural and hold regular interactive sessions. And, of course, the financial challenges couldn't be ignored. Under these circumstances, Lucas offered his help. He volunteered to help us find sponsors, seeking support from organizations working in the field of women's rights. The memory of each person's struggle was reflected in the faces of the women we now worked with. Gradually, our boldness increased. With the first seminar completed and many voices united, we managed to establish the project's initial structure. The enthusiasm was palpable. The women who had participated in the original mural came together to lead the workshops, and each was encouraged to pour their heart and soul into this new project. We began to build the foundation for something meaningful and lasting. Taking a step further, we decided to transform the mural into a continuous space of empowerment. When we entered the project room, the sense of belonging was radiant and transformative. There was shared laughter, questions being asked, and anticipation drawing a new narrative. I loved seeing the transformations blossom as participants shared their stories, and I invited them to visually capture them. What began as a personal project became a movement where many women found their voice. These were diverse experiences, moments that could easily have been lost, but were now immortalized in art, creating a powerful connection between each of us. Each session was an opportunity for resilience, a song of freedom, where we heard stories of courage emerging from pain and transforming into strength. However, the fight for acceptance reached a new level. Criticism arose on social media, an echo of voices that remained skeptical about the effectiveness of our work. A post dismissed our project as an opportunity for self-glorification and called it a waste of resources. The impact of the words on the community was instantaneous, and doubts began to proliferate among some participants. I began to see shadows of insecurity loom over us. That night, while reviewing the messages I received, I realized the intensity of the effect fear could have on the hearts of the women participating in Visible Voices. I decided we needed to unite again. This was an opportunity to show that, as a group, we are stronger than any criticism. Together, I took on the responsibility of transforming this criticism into dialogue, of creating space for understanding. I invited everyone to an evening meeting. With anxious hearts, we gathered. Each woman expressed the fears that had begun to surface. One woman began to cry, another spoke about her insecurities. It was a difficult but necessary moment. Art is an honest sharing of our lives. We cannot allow someone's doubt to erase the words we have, I said, trying to encourage bravery. It's time to show the strength we found together. What followed was cathartic. Each woman began to remember why they were there and what art had already done for them. When one of them suggested turning the criticism into an opportunity for dialogue, the spirit of the meeting began to transform. "How about we hold an exhibition in response to our critic?" suggested an artist. "We can create a mural that has space for these voices." This seed of an idea quickly took root among us. We can incorporate this criticism into the art, make it something reflective, participatory. The energy began to flow again. We decided that we would hold an event where we would paint a community mural with messages that contemplated pain and joy, criticism and the factors that make one feel marginalized. The debate would begin there. Therefore, a new event was scheduled, a night where we could unite the community and discuss art and the struggle for visibility, while remaining firm in our purpose of resignification and empowerment. The day of the event arrived, and the atmosphere was radiant. The mural took shape, and with a variety of sprays, paints, and brushes, the once silenced voices were now vibrant messages of identity, resistance, and courage. As we wrote and painted, the feeling of belonging grew. There was a new need to verbalize what it meant to be invisible, and what it meant to finally feel that the struggle is not just individual, it's collective. With a strategic plan, we began incorporating stories of overcoming adversity and hope into our artwork, filling the gaps our critics had pointed out. And in doing so, our insecurities evaporated, and the group's energy became a symbol of resilience. The event not only attracted attention, but also fostered new dialogues about what it means to be seen in a society that often silences women's voices. Reflecting on all this, I returned to thinking about Lucas and the role he might be willing to play in this new phase. He had always been supportive, but would he be able to grasp the depth of what this project meant to me and all the women involved? One afternoon, for the first time, I invited him to participate in the next event, anxious yet hopeful. These voices and these stories, you need to hear them. They go beyond me and carry something bigger, I said. He agreed to attend the community event night, a step that proved crucial. Listening to the shared stories and challenges, I felt Lucas was finally gaining a new understanding. Seeing you and all these women, it's something I won't forget. In his voice, I perceived a recognition and respect that hadn't existed before. It was as if the walls that once separated our worlds had become doors. That weekend, our mural was unified, but more importantly, each woman's voice was able to resonate beyond that space. Each one left her mark. The art became a unified cry of strength and freedom. Throughout the journey, the shadows that once hid women's struggles became layers of vibrant colors, proclaiming that each of us has her story, and it has value. The transformation we experienced, the art we created, wasn't just a reflection of our individual struggles, but a re-examination of the entire concept of invisibility. By confronting our critics, we showed that true strength lies in collectivity. The recognition of who we are, our voices, and our resilience is now a radiant tool with the power to change the world. As the art flourished, the fight for visibility continued, a promise that now reverberated throughout the community. The story of an invisible wife wasn't just mine, but that of every one of us who had the power to rewrite her own narrative and, in the process, give voice to those who still remained in the shadows. The future shone brightly before us, and I couldn't wait to see what else this journey would reveal. As days turned into weeks, the excitement generated by our exhibition and the interactive mural continued to pulse through the community. We began to be recognized as a group of women who not only wanted to be heard, but were also determined to bring about significant change. The Visible Voices project expanded to include regular workshops, allowing more women to join us, bringing their stories and struggles, and each new participant fueled our growing sense of unity and purpose. I was filled with a strengthening joy as I watched all these women emerge from their shadows. The space where doubt and silence once existed now transformed into a vibrant home that celebrated authenticity, courage, and strength. The mural, full of color, words, art, and emotions, contained all our voices, and each new layer added reflected the vitality of what we were building. Looking at it, I no longer just saw what we had created. I saw what we were still about to make a reality. The impact wasn't limited to the art. It reverberated in our daily lives, transforming not only who we were, but also how others perceived us. Walking down the streets, the magnitude of the fight for visibility seemed to fill the air. Women who were once seen as invisible began to transform their stories into new forms of authenticity and identity. There was a powerful resonance as we saw other women joining together, celebrating their victories, and learning to support each other. Lucas and my interactions also changed. What began as a disconnect now transformed into a mature dialogue. He began to participate more in the workshops, interacting with the women and listening to the depth of their stories. He became a familiar face at the mural and an advocate for the cause. One day, he turned to me and said, "I was blind, but now I see. I had no idea what was invisible to me until you showed me how real it is." His journey of self-discovery was a parallel transformation to mine, and together, we were learning to redefine what it meant to support each other. A month had passed since this new phase of our lives began, and the organization decided to celebrate this new reality with a large community event. This would be a demonstration not only of what art and collectivity had accomplished, but also a space to hear new voices that still struggled to be seen. We planned a day full of activities, including artistic performances, talks with inspiring women, and discussions about the meaning of visibility in a world that often silences women's voices. The day of the event arrived, and the energy in the air was infectious. The space was packed with visitors, with a diverse audience that included supporters, community groups, and even people who had heard about the event through local news. The mural was even more beautiful than before, now adorned with new works and messages of love, support, and unity. Observing the activity, I saw the fabric of stories and personalities intertwining. Women shared their experiences, smiling and emphasizing the importance of visibility, the strength in voices that were now part of a collective conversation. A young woman, who had participated in our workshops, took the stage and shared her journey of battling anxiety and insecurity that had accompanied her for so many years. Art helped me express myself. "Today I feel worthy and ready to be seen for who I am," she said with a sparkle in her eyes. Her words resonated powerfully, and the audience erupted in warm applause, a demonstration of support that seemed to echo like a healing mantra. I found myself reflecting on how this space had become a true sanctuary. The voices that were once hidden now rose like beacons of hope, illuminating the path for all of us. The mural became not just a testament to our experiences, but a symbol of what collectivity can achieve. Art, throughout the journey, had transformed into a weapon, opening doors and hearts. At the end of the event, as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, I looked at Lucas. The light in his expression made me feel the strength of our connection. "Sophia," he began, his eyes brimming with emotion, "I'm so proud of you and everything you've accomplished. This is just the beginning. Looking back, I never knew how strong and courageous you were. If you can share your light with the world, know that I'll always be by your side." I felt a wave of gratitude and recognition. The journey that once seemed solitary was now confirmed by a shared strength. In his words, I found a renewed desire to move forward, not just for myself, but for all of us who had struggled. The world was expanding and revealing itself before us. So, I left the event with a renewed feeling. What could have been a closing revealed itself as a new beginning, a new reality where each of us had the right to be seen and to express ourselves. The project would continue to flourish, revealing new voices, and with each new story that emerged, new horizons of possibilities would unfold. Sophia's journey, the invisible wife's journey, wasn't just a narrative of pain and struggle, but also a story of empowerment and transformation that now pulsed with vitality. The collective had become a network of support and love, fostering a vital space where we could all continue to grow, create, and thrive. For the future, there was one certainty. The fight for visibility wasn't over, but expanding, each shadow blending into the light, and each voice echoing in harmony with the others. It was time to shine, to be seen, and to make our presence undeniable.